So hello, welcome. This is Julius Forsthaus. I thought it was fun to maybe do a quick tutorial, which some people have requested, about doing loops in Mandelbulb3D. So recently I've created some VJ loops that are sort of like perfect seamless loops, and a couple of methods on how you can do those with Mandelbulb3D. So this does require some prior knowledge of animating in Mandelbulb. And then there is also some info here about how to do the light flashes. So if you watch this recent video that I made, which, oh yeah, it's playing, here we go. It's got these Mandelbulb worlds, and then we have a different version of it that sort of creates this light stuff. So here is the regular version, and then it's going to the darker version where you have these light flashes that sort of like move around the surface of the Mandelbulb. So I'll show how I do those as well. I haven't prepared anything, so we're just firing up Mandelbulb, and we'll just get some interesting formulas in here, and then we'll just try and create a VJ loop, or just a loop with that. So obviously this is the regular Mandelbulb. So let's see what kind of interesting, let's just try and do let's have a look. A Manger Coke in the first one, and an amazing box 2 in the second. Sometimes a reciprocal can be pretty cool, and maybe it's just another. Sometimes those like what are they called, oct coke or something like that. I have no idea. Sometimes you'll just get some crazy things. All right, so this is looking a little bit. Yeah, probably we should lose one of those. Maybe it's this one that we should lose. It's probably not going to be the best. Usually I would start maybe with a set of formulas that I've already found from a picture that I have saved somewhere. Okay. Maybe. So we're not going to try and create something super cool here, since that would take just a little bit more time. I'll just be looking through a vast amount of formulas that might not be very interesting to look at. But then again, this is starting to look somewhat cool. At least a little. So let's just do a quick render here. All right. I always use these ambient shadows, never the SSOA ones, AO ones. And let's just try and find. I had a interesting, just a different light setup that I might prefer. Oh, and maybe also let's get this to 1080. I always like to set the dynamic fog somewhere else. So just imagine for a second that we have something that we think is interesting enough. Maybe what happens? What's the reciprocal do? Maybe that's actually not so interesting. No, it is. It's pretty cool. This could be pretty cool too. So just imagine that this would be a picture that you go like, oh yeah, this would be an awesome VJ loop. I don't think this would qualify for me, although I could tweak it and it could be interesting actually. So what you usually need for something to loop is one of a couple of parameters that can sort of either rotate or do something like that so that they end up in the same position. Of course, you could always make a loop by taking one of the parameters, for instance, the scale, and we'll just like make it go high, and we'll make it go low and high and low, and it'll sort of like be a, you know, this sort of sinodal motion. Usually that's not super nice. It just looks like a ping pong animation. So that's not really what I'm after. One of the things that are quite obvious is rotate. You like anything that rotates, you can always rotate it from 0 to 360, and it will always end up where it was. But these rotations here, they look kind of, this could actually work. Yeah, this actually looks like a rotation because it's not in the first formula, so it doesn't change the overall shape. So it's in the second formula, so it already has a smaller, it acts on a smaller part of the fractal. Like if I would, there's also rotation here. Now if I would rotate this one, it's just gonna completely change the whole thing, and then suddenly it's gone out of the frame, or it's like the camera is right in the middle of it. So that's why the lower, the higher number you are here in your, so there's 6 slots, so these correspond to those 6 slots. Talking about these 6 slots over here. And the higher up you are, the more deeper into the fractal you are, so the more localized your animation would be. So what was I changing? Was it the Y here? So this could be this could work. So if I would want to do that, you would go here as an animation editor. You would press F, which creates a keyframe, and then if you would do 360, you might think, okay, it's going to animate this from 0 to 360. Have that linear, because that would be a linear motion. That you don't say loop, because otherwise it'll just ping pong again. So usually I would do something like this. Let's say 120 frames from here to there, and now you would expect to see something happening here, but as you can see, nothing happens. This is because apparently Mandelbulb3D doesn't store the numbers 0 and 360, but probably uses something like quaternions or something, or radial rotations. So basically it's just twice the exact same thing. So you can't rotate like that. So in order to do rotations, this goes for any sort of rotation that you have. There's also you can also just look at the rotate, sorry, like this sort of rotate formula here, or different sort of rotations over there. You would need to do something, you would need to do it in 3. I tried 0 and then 180 and then 360. That doesn't work either, that will ping pong. So I have to divide it into 3. So it's 0. Let's see if it's still there. Where we are, okay, we're at the first one. So 0, animate. Then we go to 120, animate, and then we go to 240, animate. And then we have to go back to 0, which we do by saying loop animation. This could be linear or quadratic, it shouldn't make a difference. And of course I need, if we still want it in 120, we would do 40 here, 40 there, and 40 there. Usually I would do a lot more, by the way. If I do a rotation, I usually do at least 360 frames for the whole thing, usually double. So this would be 240, 240, 240. Okay, let's have a look. And now we will see that animation of this rotation. And it should be a perfect loop. And it looks like it is. So this actually this already looks pretty cool. This could definitely be a way to create a VJ loop or anything like that. All right, so there's one other way I wanted to show you. Let's just go to the first keyframe, and it's any kind of rotation. Obviously, we could also do multiple ones. So this one from 0 to 360, whereas this one goes from 90 to, you know, at the same time to from 90 to minus 270 degrees, and that might sort of give it like a double rotation thing. So that's really could look pretty cool. There is two. Yeah, let's just look at two other ways of doing this. So we have. Let's just view to main to make sure that this is in the main one. We disabled this one because we didn't like it. There is a polyfold and a polyfold sim, which sort of creates. Let's not have it in the first slot, but sorry, in the fourth slot, but have it in the third. I'm not seeing anything here. Here we go. So now it's in the second slot, and I just want to let's put this at, let's say 24. Actually, I'm not really liking this yet. What's going on here? Okay, here we go. So now it's in the third slot. You can change those by doing it here. So this is what it was, and now we have this circular pattern here. This is maybe too circular, so let's not have this 24, but let's have this 16. This could look, maybe let's just change the view a little bit, because this is quite obvious how this is going to rotate. Yeah, here we go. So this could be a cool, like, you know, Mayan stone that rotates. And in order to rotate this, obviously, it would be the this one, the shift degrees. This is hard to see. Actually, you would need to have a bigger motion here in order to see it. Here we can see it. It won't rotate completely like this, by the way. It'll sort of, you would love that, but it sort of will create the symmetry axes in the middle, perhaps, yeah, where it just disappears into itself, which is a bummer, but there's probably ways, or there's maybe other places where this would look pretty cool. Okay, so now we have to figure out what the period is. So usually I think I get there by, so we have the order 16. So I just go to the calculator. It's a Dutch version of the calculator. And when I just do 360 divided by 16, which is 22.5. But I think 22.5 is not the correct one. I need to double that again. So 22.5. Is it the same? Yeah, it is in this time. Sometimes you have to double it. And sometimes it's fine. So, okay. So that's it. So the first keyframe that we're doing will be this one, and then the second one, 22.5. And another keyframe. Delete that one. And here again, I need to have a linear one, no loop. I'll just go from 0 to 22.5, and then we're basically, it looks like we're back at 0, so that will be like a perfect seamless loop. As you can see, it's a rotation that sort of starts in the middle and then animates out. This could obviously be a pretty cool way to animate as well. So that's the second way, would be the polyfold sim to do rotations. Now the polyfold sim can be anywhere in the, if it's in the first, now it's just rotating, but you could rotate on very small levels and create completely way more weird looking things than I am here. Okay, let's just look at one more, and that would be, so yeah, the sin y. This is a very useful one. I often use it. Okay, so now we got this weird thing. We're still in the same, it's in the same slot. I know a lot is moving here. Okay, we're still at this large. This could be pretty cool. If this is in the, I think if this is, I like it here, but I just want to see what happens when we put it in the first slot. Where is the, yeah. Look at that. Pretty interesting. Oh, actually, yeah, this is perfect. Okay. So we are, okay, let's just, I'm going to go view to main, and I'm just going to go way out there just to show you what happened now on a larger scale. Sorry, I need to find my way out of this fractal first. Okay. There we are. So we created this endless chain, and when it was on the third formula number, it would not create this whole chain. It would do it on a much smaller scale. But since it's on the first one, this is the way it was, and now it's just created this thing. And the offset will just change. We'll just change the location on that bit, on that chain, basically. So I'm going to insert parameter because that's where we were. So now it would be pretty cool to sort of like just move through this environment. Because if I change this offset, we're just gonna, it'll just be like we're traveling through this place. And because of the nature of the repetition, we can end up exactly where we were. So that's pretty cool. Now if I wanted to do like a perfect straight camera, that would be interesting. We're actually still in this sort of fisheye camera. We could do this rectangular camera. And in order to completely align the camera, we can look at the, so let's just do a render. Not that it matters much. By the way, this seems to be completely clipped, so let's just very quickly take that defog a little bit lower. Okay, so let's go to the rotation of the camera. So we see it was like 90, this is almost 180, and this is minus 180, this is almost 180. So I can just completely straighten this out by taking those numbers to the exact values. 180. Apply to image, nothing happens here, but now if I go to the navigator, hey, we've actually turned around. Yeah, this is funny. That's fine. If I want to do, I can do a rolling angle would be 90, so chop, chop, and we're back where we were, and now we're just facing the correct way. So now changing this offset is going to produce this perfectly straight thing. Yeah. So what is the number I should set this to? That took me a while to figure out. It wasn't 1, it wasn't 2. It's like what is happening? So it turns out it's pi times 2. So pi, if I would punch that in, sometimes it actually works with just 1 pi. So if pi is the, yeah, in this case it does. Sometimes it's you have to do double, so it has to be like 6.28. But right now it's apparently for some reason, I don't know why. Pi is the exact period. So again, make a keyframe, change this to pi, make a keyframe, and we have, so we're linear, we're not looping, even though we're creating a loop. Otherwise, we'll just ping pong back, you know, back and forth. But right now, we're just gonna get this endless loop, like we're just moving through an endless array of fractals. It's a quite easy and simple way to create a loop, very effective for VJ stuff. I VJ sometimes, and I've got a lot of clips that are not loops, and I'll just like, and I hate to use them because you always have to like keep your eye on that it doesn't run out. It'll just be ugly when it sort of like moves back to the beginning at a inappropriate moment. So these loops are, you never have to worry about them. They'll always like be good, and just you can change them to another loop or on the beat or whatever. You know, only focus on the music and not have to focus on whether your clip is running out. So that's one way of doing it. So I would render this, I would render this in probably 1920 1080 or double, doing 2K, and I would probably render about, let's say, I would look at, is 160 frames enough, and I'll just render every frame, and I'll just render the preview, and I'll just look at, okay, no, this, I need way more in between frames than this, probably double. So you would go like, yes, 360, that sounds pretty good. And yeah, this might just be enough to do frame interpolation on. If actually not, I actually need even more. I want more in between frames. So I would go, let's just do 480. Okay. And that would be pretty good. Okay. So that's one thing. That's one part. That's the creating the loops part. And then we're looking, let's very quickly look at those. Then we also have to jump into After Effects in order to do that. To look at those light pulses. What would happen if we would try that? Okay. This might not be the most perfect fractal for it, but let's just try what happens if we try it here. Okay, well, let's just save this picture. Usually I would save the animation, but for now we'll just do a picture, and let's just call it, well, what shall we call it? Sinus. And then we call it, I call this the beauty, which is not, doesn't mean anything like beautiful or something, but it's something that compositors use to say the most regular pass that's not, and the Z buffer as well here, the most regular pass, it's not like one of the passes that we're going to make now. So let's make a few passes. Okay, so the most important one would be, I have actually a lighting preset, but let's just try and create it from scratch so we just know for sure what we're doing. Okay, so the defog, let's just put it to 0 for now. Let's change the background to complete black. Just make sure these are all 0. Complete black. Here we go. I don't want any lights. Oh, apparently there were some lights on here. There's a lot of lights on. Okay. All of them are off. And the ambient light goes to white. And this needs to go to, if I press 1 on my keyboard, it'll just jump to the 1 location. There we go. And what I want to do, right now I have basically the most neutral lighting. I do not want ambient shadows either. So let's just get rid of those. We can also just get rid of them by doing this. Now this is starting to look very ugly, which is fine because we're not going for anything interesting. So I want to create a red, green, blue. Let's also get rid of the specular, by the way. Although it won't matter because all the lights are off. So you're not going to see any specular. Just to be safe. The specular colors are the second, they're the middle ones here. The top ones are the refraction. This is the specular, so we don't have to worry about that. We just have to worry about the diffuse. So a pure red. Here we go. This is a pure red. And then actually you would only want to get a couple of sliders. It's kind of annoying that you cannot just get rid of those flags. Or if you can, I don't know about it. Tell me about it in the comments. We need one here and we need one there. Well, let's just do blue one here. So it's a perfect blue, so 0, 0, 255. And a perfect green, which would be 0, 2, 5, 5, 0. And actually that should, to do a huge, this should circle back to red. So I'm just going to go sort of divide those evenly, and going, if I actually hover over this and I press C, I can, with V, not Control C or V, but just V, I can, okay, we need to do all those. I can copy paste those colors, yeah? Okay, let's try and, this would be a lot better if you just could delete those. So we have this sort of hue cycle here. Okay, now we have to look at how we map that onto the, wait, where are we? Okay, onto the fractal. It's, okay, here we go. This is easier. This is probably not like the fractals with the tendrils that I did. It's probably a lot better than this one. We could try and do a different. Okay, this is gonna look horrible. It's not the best. Yeah, with these little circles here, that's gonna be a bit weird. It really works better when you have tendrils and when you have sort of, so that it looks like it's little pulses that slide over these things. This is just gonna be a big box that's just going to look like it's going crazy. But that doesn't matter. Remember, these colors are only to use in After Effects as a hue. We're not going to see those colors. I would never create anything with this sort of color. So this is like an RGB pass. Sometimes I just use two colors. I use only the red and the green for this, and I'll do the dynamic fog, and I'll just make this completely blue so that I can separate those, and I can also have a separate pass with the dynamic fog. But I think this would work better, and I could just do another render for just the dynamic fog. So yeah, this would be it. This would be the pass, and I would save this, and I would call it RGB. And I would actually create another one, which I have done, and I call it color. And it looks like this, but it has different ambient shadows. It has a much smaller range, so more stuff is lit up with these. This is a very interesting one as well. When you use DEAO or ambient shadows, which you should always, especially for animations, because otherwise you're going to get very strange artifacts around the edges. You can change how far that, so right now we're only looking at small details, so the shadows are only in the smaller details, because it's not looking at anything beyond 0.2. Now I want to change this to 2, so 10 times more, and I create the ambient shadows. It's going to look more overall. It's just going to look darker, but not just darker, it's just going to look more global instead of more local. So you can always change that around to sort of suit your needs. But in this case, I want it to be super small. When I do nighttime stuff, like daytime, it's cool to have this large. You're going to have this like sort of overcast daytime look. But when you want to do sort of more like self-illuminated nighttime stuff, it's usually a good idea to keep this super tiny. So like even 0.1 or 0.05 or something like that. You still get the shadow details, but they're going to be tinier. So we have lots of little colors here, and these little colors we're going to use as well. So let's just save this as well, and I will call this color. Right. Okay, so jump into After Effects and see how we can use that RGB pass in order to create those light pulses, which I'm getting a lot of questions about. Okay, I actually set my monitor resolution to like a full HD instead of 4K, so might need to move some things around here. Okay, so okay, let me think where we got all that stuff. So I think, oh yeah, still renders, and then here we got what we rendered. Okay, so we got the beauty. Here it is. Obviously, you would do animation. Right now, we're just using stills, but this would work with the animation as I just showed you. Okay, so let's go to the RGB. So here, this is the regular one, and then we have this RGB. So make a new comp with the RGB, and what I'm going to do is, okay, we'll go at 10,000 frames. Okay, well, fine. Colorama is a plugin. No, it's not a plugin. Sorry, this comes with. It's just an effect. It comes with the package. The input phase is going to be the hue. So that's the RGB stuff that we had. It's basically doing exactly the same, apart from that it's now also mapping black to red. And the output cycle, which is right now a hue cycle, I'm going to make a custom one. I start with alpha ramp. This one is actually a so I want the alphas to be all completely full, but I want the color to be black on this one. And I want to make another black here, and I want to make everything black except for a little white blip right there. Now if I change the phase shift, that location of that white blip is going to shift according on its location on that hue ramp. So this is sort of what I said, like this is not those little circles that you could tell that it would do this. It's not a good fractal for it. Like it would work, it works very well with those tendrils. And when I say those tendrils, I'm referring to not this. It works cool. Yeah, so like these sort of fractals. Here you can see that effect. So this is what we're doing here. This is exactly how I did that. Okay, this looks a little bit weird, but it will look better. So what I do is, okay, let's just make this not 960 frames, but let's say 240. Just do. I'll just put this at 0 first, and I create a keyframe, and I go to the end of the loop, wherever that would be, and we'll go like, okay, well, it's done 3 rotations in that time. There we go. Now it's because black apparently is also a color. It's actually the same as red. So this black background is also lighting up here. I want to get rid of that, and I can do that with the Z buffer. So I'll take the Z buffer, I'll take some levels, and let's have a look. What's going on here? Okay, everything but that is black, maybe a little bit in the background here. I want to clip it, and then I want to multiply this, and then we're getting rid of that, just that part. So now it's cycling through. So we got a lot of noise as well here. So I usually do one more thing, and that is I add a median filter, which basically, if there's just a single pixel, and you set the radius to 1, I'll just get rid of a lot of that very tiny noise, and it'll just leave you with the more significant parts. Yeah? Okay. So that's so I would call this something, you know, like whatever so sinus is then the name of the fractal, and then I'll call this like dots. I'll take the color version. Here we go. And I take those dots and I mask those. So now we have the color. Here we go. Of that colored version. And then we have these little dots here. I need a little black background behind it. And then I can just do an adjustment layer that I call glow. You guessed it, the glow filter. It's really not a great filter. It's sort of pretty ugly sometimes, but it actually does work for this sort of stuff, although it very quickly glows out to this saturated color instead of going to white. So there's a very good, it very quickly sort of starts clipping, and I hate that. But you can, so this already starts looking pretty cool. Yeah, awesome. So I'm actually thinking right now that I should have maybe done a darker beauty pass, because now we have the beauty, which is very light, right? So we can see, because nothing clips here, so we can definitely take this down a little bit. No, not color. What am I doing? Curves. All right. Let's just make this very dark. Let's make it dark looking. Here we go. It's going to be pretty cool. There's one more thing I want to do, and that is to take those and put a glow here as well. So this will look interesting, because it will look like, yeah, with a bigger radius and a higher intensity. Yeah, this will look like it spills a little bit of extra color. Oh my god, this is getting horrible. Is it because of this? Not really. Okay, then maybe take the intensity of this one down a little. Okay. And then I might just try and add the color one. Oh yeah, so with this we were at 240 frames, and add it to the beauty. I might maybe want to make it darker. I definitely need to take that glow down. This is not good looking good. More like 0.15. There we go. And maybe do some extra saturation here. Sometimes I might also just hue shift this around to get these, like if I want these sort of like blue light, black light, sort of purple hues. I'll just like start playing around with that. There we go. It's starting to look better. So there they are. Again, this is not a perfect fractal for it, although it can be pretty cool, because you suddenly start reading those shapes of those, you know, it's very dark here. And this could be like a cool flashy thing for, you know, for a VJ loop. So yeah, that's how I did those. Obviously, didn't do it as fast as I did it here, and it took me a lot more tweaking, and I was rendering not as still like here, but animations in 4K with more complex fractals that took longer to render, etc. But yeah, I hope that was helpful to anyone trying to create these cool effects, and thank you very much for listening to this short ad hoc tutorial, and catch you later. Bye bye.